Hello and welcome to Chisme del Cielo, where we talk about the only gossip worth sharing, the good news. I'm your host, Yahaira Valenzuela. And y'all, we are less than a week away from Thanksgiving, which is super exciting. I'm so excited for the food. Of course, I'm sure most of us are. But when I was thinking about what I wanted this week's episode to be about, I was like, I feel like it should be a little Thanksgiving themed in a way. And so I kind of was brainstorming different things that I could talk about, different topics that I might want to cover. And I fell upon this, list of possibilities, right? And I decided to kind of combine two of the things that I was thinking about, two of the themes, and go with this theme of finding light when the season feels heavy. Thanksgiving kind of marks the beginning of the holidays in a way, I think, at least the big ones. And, this season, I guess, can be very difficult for people for several different reasons, right? And another thing that's very common around this time of year is what is kind of known as seasonal depression, right? And so I wanted to kind of talk about, having gratitude in the gray, right? And again, like I said, finding light when the season feels heavy. So yeah, I mean, we're in the week before Thanksgiving, and I feel like this can be an emotional mix, right? With there being kind of a cultural pressure to be thankful, coupled with literal darker days, right? It gets dark so early now, with maybe stress of if you're in school finals or just nearing the end of the calendar year can be hard for anyone's job, I'm sure. Maybe loneliness or, like I said, seasonal depression. So just right off the bat, before I start, I did want to say that it's very okay for faith and struggle to coexist, right? This is such a real thing. We are humans. We do struggle. And that doesn't mean that our faith has to falter when that happens. So yeah, that's kind of what we're going to get into today. And so I hope that, you learn something or at least enjoy listening to this. So let's get into it. So to kind of set the stage for this episode, I guess I kind of have to talk about what I mean when I say seasonal depression. I feel like this is something that is commonly heard in society. And actually, seasonal depression is a very real thing. It's actually called seasonal affective disorder, or SAD. The acronym is SAD, which is sad, but and it's a type of depression that follows a kind of recurrent seasonal pattern, most commonly starting in the late fall, which we're in now, and early winter, and it typically improves in the spring and summer, right? So that's why it's a seasonal depression. And to actually be having this, right, it's more than just the winter blues or whatever. It actually interferes with daily life, with symptoms that might include a persistent sad or empty mood, maybe low energy, oversleeping, changes in the appetite. So it is really, truly a real thing. And obviously with mental health and stuff, there isn't necessarily, I mean, for the most part, you could, if you wanted to, pin it down to what's causing it, right? But just some things that might affect it are the reduced daylight, right? So there being shorter days and less sunlight, that can honestly truly actually disrupt your body's internal clock, right? And so that kind of messes with your brain. Brain chemical changes, right, can be affected because of this, which, it affects the chemicals in the brain that regulate your mood and your sleep, your serotonin and melatonin production, right? And so, yeah, just the lack of daylight itself can cause sleepiness and low energy, right? So decrease in serotonin, and this can contribute to feelings of depression. So it is a very real thing that I think society likes to kind of throw around sometimes as like, I don't want to say a joke, but like, like a whatever thing. And I say this without like, want to be very clear, I'm not giving any medical advice because I don't know what advice I would give, but I'm just kind of validating the experience because it is a very real thing, and you might be going through it and not even know that that's what it is, right? And I think that, as a young adult, I think that young adults are especially vulnerable to seasonal depression for a variety of reasons, right? And not just young adults, it could be anyone, but this is just what I am, so it's what I know. But with transitions, right, whether it be transitioning into college or out of college, right, into a job or a new job, a career, moving, maybe relationships, right, a lack of routine, or maybe increased isolation post-college, right? I know that can be extremely hard, or if you are in college or you just moved away from family, maybe, that could also be a factor, right? And so I want to really emphasize that feeling low doesn't mean that you are less Catholic or that you're doing something wrong, right? I think it's very easy to think in these times of desolation, when you're not feeling too good, to think that God doesn't want you to be happy, or he wants you to suffer, or he's punishing you for this, that, or the other, right? But that's not necessarily true. Actually, it's not true, because at the end of the day, God does want you to be happy. He loves you very much, and he wants you to be a happy person. So feeling low does not mean that you are doing anything wrong. You're just human, right? And you're gonna feel things, and that's okay. I know that I've been saying for the past few episodes that I'm like going through it and going through like this time of kind of desolation. And so it is like, it has been particularly hard for me these past few like couple of weeks. And I think going into the holidays, it's been especially hard just because, there's more events, there's like more social events, right? You have to be more social. There's like events at the church, there's events at school or at work, whatever, like there's just a lot going on. Obviously with the holidays, like there's gonna be family gatherings and just times where, like I said earlier, you're just kind of expected to be happy, and especially with Thanksgiving, to be grateful. And I think that when you are in a time of desolation or going through these dry seasons, or maybe you're experiencing seasonal depression, like it's very hard to put on a smile and be grateful for life, right? And this is just me being real, like it is a hard thing. And that's kind of why, like I said, I wanted to talk about this, because you're not alone. I am someone who, like I've said before, I'm at the church basically every day. And when I am sad, I'll take myself to adoration, I'll spend some time with Jesus. I read my Bible, and so I know that it's not that I'm necessarily doing anything wrong in my faith, but I still feel down, right? And so I just, again, wanted to emphasize that you're not alone and you're not doing anything wrong. It's just the reality of being human, right? So, yeah, to kind of lead off of that, I want to talk about, I guess, what we could call like the Catholic perspective on darkness and suffering. So, darkness is not a sign of abandonment. One of the most important truths in Catholic spirituality is that feeling distant from God does not mean that God is distant from you. The church distinguishes between emotional consolation, which is feeling God's presence, and spiritual reality, which is God actually being present. So you can be deeply loved and spiritually close to God even when you feel nothing. And this is what sets the foundation for how Catholics understand interior darkness, right? So faith, it's a faith that makes room for the night, in a sense, right? So Catholic tradition doesn't sugarcoat life. I think that's amazing, because if it was all rainbows and flowers, it would be a little too good to be true, I think. And God is too good to be true, but he is true. And so I love that as Catholics, we really don't sugarcoat life. So the Bible itself, it has laments, it has cries of, how long, oh Lord, and moments when prophets feel overwhelmed, right? It's in the Bible, like, why not you, right? We have this privilege of worshiping a God who entered human suffering, right? Not one who avoids it, because God himself was human, right? As Jesus. He was here. He did all of the things that we did. He was crucified, which is worse, far worse than a lot of us will ever have to go through. Most of us, I'm sure, actually any of us, because he was innocent and sinless and we are not. So honestly, we deserve whatever comes at us. But when the nights get long, right, literally in November as they do, or spiritually, your experience is not outside of the story of faith, right? It's actually a part of it, because Jesus himself suffered. And, saints also walked through darkness, right? These people that we believe are now in heaven, like, they also walked through darkness, right? Holy does not equal happy all of the time. So St. John of the Cross actually described the dark night of the soul. So he said that it's not a punishment, but rather a purification that leads to deeper union with Christ, right? The night, right, so those bad moments, is the space where God deepens love, not where he withdraws. So he's not leaving you alone. He's not abandoning you. He's actually working through the night, right? Working through that darkness and deepening his love. Saint Therese battled interior darkness in the last years of her life, right? And she died at 24, so very young, right? But she felt doubt and spiritual dryness, and even then, she chose small acts of trust in the midst of it all, right? Showing that holiness isn't grand gestures, it's fidelity in the small and the unseen, right? All those little moments, right? Like even you at Thanksgiving dinner, right? Choosing to be grateful even when you don't necessarily feel that way. Like, those are small acts of trust, right? Because you're trusting that God has something good planned for you, that there is a rainbow after the storm, right? Mother Teresa, right, experienced decades, y'all, of spiritual darkness. And yet she served with radical joy and love, because her faith wasn't based on emotion, but on commitment. And that is what we are called to do. So I hope that these little examples of saints, right, help you to understand that if even the saints had dark seasons, then struggling doesn't make you less holy, because they also struggled, and they're in heaven now. So you struggling does not mean you will not end up in heaven. It just means that you better watch how you respond to the struggle, right? And the key point is just, that God works through dark seasons, not just after them. So remember that. But I know that I guess like the follow-up question that a lot of people have is like, well, why does God even allow these seasons to happen, right? And God does have a plan for you, and I know it could be easy to just be like, well, God planned for you to suffer, right? Like he wanted you to learn a lesson from this, right? But it's honestly a lot like deeper than that. And in Catholic spirituality, darkness can be a place of growth, right? Suffering can become a place of solidarity with Christ. And that silence that you are feeling or hearing, right? Or, not hearing, can open up dependence on God rather than on feelings. So it really is like a test of your trust, right? Like trustful kind of, but spiritually. And we don't have a God who is far from suffering, right? We have a God who was tired, who was lonely, who was misunderstood, who was rejected, and even cried out on the cross, right? In the same ways that you do in your daily life. And when life feels heavy or gray, we aren't imitating a distant God, right? We are sharing in the very life of Christ because he went through all of those same feelings that you are going through. And so something a little like reassuring to me, and I hope to you as well, is that Jesus comes into the darkness with us, right? He doesn't just wait for us to climb out of it and hope for the best. No. He comes into the darkness with us. I know that you have probably heard that Christ is the light that shines in the darkness, but it's true, right? He's not the light that avoids darkness. He shines in the darkness, so he's right there with you. And the Eucharist is thanksgiving in the midst of suffering, right? A continual offering of brokenness that we get to celebrate at least once a week, right? And in Advent, which comes right after Thanksgiving, we intentionally await the light in the night. That is so beautiful. I hope those are like some good theological images to think of when you're feeling in the dark, you know? Because seasonal heaviness becomes a place where Jesus meets us quietly and gently, and he is that light for us. And again, like, darkness doesn't equal spiritual failure, sadness doesn't equal sin, and depression definitely does not equal a lack of faith, right? You can be in darkness and still be spiritually healthy. Spiritual dryness can come from a lot of things, and this is something that I've kind of had to learn over the past couple of years, right? It can come from emotional burnout, maybe trauma or grief, right? Like if you recently lost someone, it can be so easy to question God or to feel alone. Maybe physical or neurochemical realities, right? Or just the normal rhythm of the spiritual life. And even in all of these seasons and all of these like things, God's love is steady. So when your life is not, God's love always is. And so, you know, when your emotions dip, God's presence remains faithful. And that's something really, really incredible to remember. So I kind of mentioned, you know, like it can be so hard to feel thankful or feel grateful during these times and these seasons. But I think like that's what I want to talk about next, right? Like what is gratitude, right? Like what is it and what is it not? Because one thing I will say right off the bat is gratitude is not pretending that everything is fine. And it's funny because I described it as that earlier. You know, I said it's hard because you feel like you have to pretend that everything is fine, but you don't. Because gratitude is simply the choice to notice God's presence even when your emotions are lagging behind. So there are different types of gratitude. There's descriptive gratitude, which is naming what is. Defiant gratitude, which is giving thanks even amid confusion. And relational gratitude, which is thanking God for staying with us in the darkness. And y'all, there are so many examples of this in the Bible, right? The Psalms of Lament, right, that still choose thanksgiving, even though those writers, you know, were going through it. There's Paul giving thanks from prison, like, hello, you're in prison and you're still being grateful. Like, that's crazy. And John 1, you know, says that the light shines in the darkness. So even though things are not fine, things are probably very not okay, right? You can still choose to be grateful. You can still choose to have gratitude in these difficult seasons, right? And so I wanted to, of course, include some practical tools for practicing gratitude when you're struggling, right? Because I think that's important. And when you are struggling in this way, like, you are, the last thing you're thinking of is being grateful. So maybe these little things will kind of help you work through that. But for one, you know, practice micro Thanksgiving, right? Find one tiny gift each day, whether you're thankful for your warm cup of coffee, right? Maybe you're thankful for somebody holding the door open for you, thankful for having a quiet room to pray, for a kind text that someone's saying, something really small. Just be like, wow, I'm so thankful for this, whatever, moving on, right? Maybe having a gratitude partner. This takes a lot of like humility, because I think it's really hard for us as humans to admit when we're going through it, or when we need help, or when we need community, right? Or someone to just kind of be with us. But if you are struggling and you've been struggling for a while, pick one good person that you trust, right? And have a gratitude partner where you maybe share 1 or 2 gratitudes daily, right? With a friend, or maybe with a small group, to kind of help you, like, to keep you accountable in a way, right? Because you don't have to struggle alone. And you're not struggling alone, because God is with you. But one of the best things about our faith as Catholics is the community, right? So use it. You do not struggle alone. You can also anchor your gratitude to prayer. So just lighting a candle and saying, Jesus, thank you for staying close. Or Jesus, God, thank you for this day. God, thank you for allowing me to wake up today. Thank you for allowing me to live a day. Honestly, thank you for letting me suffer, right? Like, be thankful even for the darkness, because despite and this probably sounds so horrible when you're feeling in the dumps, but I'm gonna say it because I have to. But be thankful that you are suffering, because at the end of the day, you lived another day, right? And even if it was the worst day of your life, or you think it was the worst day of your life, you got to live a day. And that's something to be grateful for on its own, right? But yeah, you can also, find, for lack of better terms, an outlet, right? Maybe caring for your body, as honoring the temple of the Holy Spirit, right? Like, go for a run, work out, play a sport, find a hobby, something to kind of pour into, to help you, remember that you're grateful for things, right? Being grateful that you can run, being grateful that you can play pickleball with your friends, being grateful that you are, you have an outlet, or you have a hobby, or you have a talent that God gave you, right? A gift. Also, of course, liturgical help. So maybe visiting a church at during those dark times, right? Like, even though it's dark outside, still go stop by adoration, right? Don't let that stop you. Maybe praying evening prayer during those dark months. So like right now that it gets dark so early, maybe praying in the evening instead of the morning, to kind of help you in that literal time of darkness. And just using Advent as a season of hopeful expectation, right? You got to remember that there's going to be calm after the storm, right? There's going to be a rainbow after the rain. So just being hopeful that things will get better, right? Especially if it really is just like a seasonal thing, right? I don't want to like minimize that or like diminish the feeling, but just emphasizing that, find your hope in God, root it in God, root it in the gratitude, and be thankful that there is something to hope for. And of course, when gratitude does just truly feel impossible, turn to the church, y'all. The church offers so much, right? Like I said earlier, community. You don't have to generate all your own hope. That's what God is for. That's what people are for. That is what your family is for. So lean on your community. There's also, of course, the sacraments, right? Confession as renewal. Maybe you need to let go of something, and that's what's got you down, right? Eucharist as Thanksgiving itself, being so thankful for Jesus' sacrifice and Jesus' suffering, right? The fact that he suffered with you, and the Eucharist is such a big reminder of that, right? He did that for you, and that is something to be thankful for always. And again, going back to community, there's intercessory prayer, right? Let others hold you up. You are not alone. You don't have to do it alone. So ask someone, even if it's your parents or whoever, ask someone to pray for you. Ask your abuelitos, don't hold back. Let people help you. So just remember in the Gospel of John, right? John chapter 1, verse 5, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it, right? Jesus is the light of the world. He's the source of life, of guidance, of spiritual illumination for us as humans, right? And the light that Jesus provides is a path that leads to life, right? Seasonal heaviness does not separate us from God's love. God receives even the smallest and simplest thank you. So just be thankful. Be thankful for your suffering. Be thankful for life. Be thankful for the friend that you have in Jesus. And be thankful for his sacrifice and for his love, you know? Seasonal heaviness, I'm repeating it one more time, does not separate us from God's love. God works through the darkness. He doesn't avoid it, and he never, ever leaves you alone. Even if you feel like you are alone, you are not, because God is always with you. So I invite y'all, with Thanksgiving coming up, to just share something you're grateful for, even if it's small, right? St. Therese shows us, the little flower. Even if it's small, be grateful. If you're struggling, find your community, talk to a friend, pray an evening prayer, right, when it gets dark. Be grateful, because life is a gift, and we were blessed with it, and God loves you so, so, so much, and I'm sure you know that, but if you haven't heard it today, you're hearing it now. God loves you so much, and he wants you to be happy. So have hope in that, right? Romans 5:5 says that hope does not disappoint. So God is not going to disappoint you if you just trust in him. He has a plan for you. It's very good. Find hope in that. Be grateful for that reality. And yeah. Thanks for tuning in, you guys. I don't think I'm gonna release an episode next week because of the holiday, right? So happy Thanksgiving. I hope that you guys eat lots of delicious food and get to spend some time with your family. I hope that you guys choose to be grateful every day and to hold on to the hope that, things will get better, because God loves you and he has a plan for you, and it's a good plan, and I cannot emphasize that enough. Things will get better. So, yeah. Happy Thanksgiving. Give thanks. Pray for me. I'll pray for you. And yeah, let's continue to learn together. Let's grow together. And of course, let's be saints together. God bless y'all. If you're as excited for this podcast as I am, please give me a follow, leave a review or a comment or whatever it is that people leave on podcasts. And of course, please continue to pray for me as we embark on this journey together. God bless you all, and stay tuned.